Okay, we'll get started here. Is this on? Okay, it's on. Okay. I'll wait till everybody. Thanks for joining us tonight. My name is Charlene Leal, and I'm the professor of art and printmaking at the University of Oregon. Which is located on Kalapua Alihi, the homelands of the Kalapua people. And following the indigenous protocol of acknowledging the original people and stewards of the land we occupy, I want to extend our respect to the 9 federally recognized indigenous nations of Oregon, to the tribes who have ancestral connections to this territory, as well as to all displaced indigenous people who call Oregon home. Today, I'm really delighted to be introducing Tallmadge Doyle, who will share more about her intricate works in printmaking, painting, and drawing. She was born in New York City and is now an artist based in Eugene, Oregon. Tallmadge received her BFA from the Cleveland Art Institute and an MFA from the University of Oregon in Eugene. She has participated in over 150 national and international exhibitions, recently at the Bradbury Art Museum in Arkansas, Pyramid Atlantic Art Center in Maryland, the 11th International Printmaking Biennial of Douro in Portugal, and has shown at Ogden Gallery in Portland, the Seattle Art Museum Gallery, and Karen Clark Gallery in Eugene. Her work is included in over 30 public collections in the US and abroad, and on campus you can see her public art commission in the Ford Alumni Center, and around town you might have seen her public artwork for Lane Transit District. She has taught drawing and intaglio for our department, and I think maybe intro to printmaking, and just yesterday, seemed quite a while ago, she came and gave a gallery talk to our intermediate advanced printmaking students, and we got to ask her very detailed questions about printmaking and also about her practice as an artist. And what else did we do? Oh, and then she did some reviews in our class, and that was really fun too. I am a great admirer of her skills as a printmaker, an artist, and as an educator. I'm so delighted to have her here. We'll have time for some questions after the lecture, and following the Q&A, we want to invite you to join us at her artist reception in Laverne Krause Gallery, which is that way, where we can see some really, really beautiful work in person, and that's going to be up through April 25th. This lecture is made possible by the Laverne Krause Lectures and Exhibitions Endowment, so please join me now in welcoming Tallmadge Doyle.
Thank you, Charlene. Thank you, everybody, for coming. It's such a beautiful day. And yes, it was really fun yesterday with the students. We had a good time. It was good to be sort of back talking to them again. And okay, so this first slide, you can see the dedication to the James Webb Space Telescope. You know what? I need a little light over here. Is there a little light? Oh, okay. I thought there might be like a little light right around here, but okay. And that's too light everywhere? Oh, here's a light. There's a few things that I'm going to read, so I don't know how this goes on or what it is, actually. I didn't think about that. You know, I could use my light on my iPhone. Okay, I can see plenty well right now.
That's okay?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. So one of the many pictures from the James Webb Space Telescope, and this telescope was designed to conduct infrared astronomy. It's very high resolution, high sensitivity, so we can view objects that are too old and distant from its predecessor, the Hubble Space Telescope. And I look at these photographs a lot, and you'll see why. You saw the show, you probably see why. So first of all, I want to say thank you, really heartfelt thank you to my printmaking professors that I studied with here years ago, Margaret Prenos, who is here, and Ken Paul, who I don't think is here today. And they're still both around Eugene, and I get to see them both. And they were really wonderful at sort of guiding me to discover printmaking, and also, you know, to develop a deeper voice as an artist, which is one of the reasons I came back to graduate school. And the other reason I came back was to really learn about printmaking, because before I had come here, I only knew about etching, copperplate etching, and had some experience with that. But U of O offered, you know, lithography and screen printing, woodcut, all these different combinations of those things and more. And so that's why I really came here to go to graduate school, to become a skilled printmaker, I guess. And let's see. Yeah, the world of printmaking is really large. There's so many things to learn. So I'm going to show you a couple series right now that I did about 15 years ago. That's sort of where I'm starting for this talk. So I designed the talk around the idea of giving you a sense of progression through the last 15 years. And I think the best way to do this is to show you images from my experience at various artist residencies too, that really had an impact on me and my work. And yeah, I've been really fortunate to participate in a number of artist residencies these last 12 years or so. So let's see, I'm just learning how to use this. So this series, homage to Giordano Bruno. I don't know if anyone in the room really knows who he is. You might have heard his name. And he was a 16th century philosopher, poet, sort of dabbled in sciences. And I'm going to back up a little bit. Here we go. I was kind of jumping ahead. This is a photograph of a scientific notebook, and not his necessarily. I don't think that this is known who the artist or scientist is that drew this, but this was in an exhibition that I got to see in Florence, Italy, at the History of Science and Industry. It's now called the Galilei Museum because it contains a lot of the original instruments of Galileo. And so I really became fascinated with this person. And, you know, he talked about, you know, in the 16th century, he talked about how there are parallel universes, and how all religions can peacefully coexist. You know, he was just a real rebel, and of course, that was very difficult to be that in that time. He ended up being burned at the stake in 1600, and was imprisoned for 9 years and got his tongue cut out, you know, stuff like that. So he had, you know, kind of a hard time. But this work is inspired by him, and these are all etchings. They're one-of-a-kind, unique etchings, and they have a number of etching plates. They go through the press maybe 6 or 7 times. Etching plates with aquatint, line etching. I often print on Japanese paper, and then I cut out pieces of that paper and collage, or in printmaking we say shinkole, printing and pasting at the same time. So they're very complex prints. I would never try and make editions of these prints ever. And this one is actually upside down, but you might not really know it. I kind of like it both ways. But so now we're getting into the homage to Kepler. And if you know anything about astronomy, you've heard the name Johann Kepler, and astronomer, German. He was really a pioneer in astronomy at that time, and he developed what he called the 3 laws of planetary motion. And one of those laws was about how the planets orbit around the sun in elliptical shapes instead of, here's one that really speaks visually to that, instead of circles. So that was, that was a new concept at the time. And let's see. So yeah, just combining a lot of different copper plates, and then one reason why I love printmaking is because you can see, I mean, variations of the same image. And for me, that's very fun. You can experiment and really dive into an image and make it do a lot of different things from the same matrices. And now I'm getting into a series called Celestial Mapping. So I'm not really talking about the size of these things. This one is smaller, maybe 16 by 20, and the other ones that I showed you are like 22 by 28. And this one you might be able to see the relationship to the drawing that I showed you first of the scientific notebook. So I began to be very interested in the history of mapping and of celestial mapping. And I became interested in how these astronomers, these other scientists and artists collaborated to produce maps to circumnavigate the globe. And there's another one. This is a bit larger. So there's large pieces that I printed on Japanese paper that are shinkolle to this print, and it probably went through the press like 6 or 7 times. So I never know, when I start to do an image or play with plates, I have a vague idea about what the end product or image might look like. And there's a lot of experimentation and trial and error involved. Yeah, so the color's pretty well on this. Maybe in reality it's just a touch, the image is a touch brighter, but it's pretty close. And I became really a little bit, I started collecting maps. I have this one drawer in my studio, where I have maps, and I'm not like a serious map collector, but I take them out and I put them up on the wall and just kind of absorb them. I love maps, and I know a lot of people do. What is their name for that? Mapophiles or cartophiles, or I can't remember the name right now. But yeah, and so I always wonder why people love to look at maps. Not everybody, obviously, but a lot of people just love to look at maps. And I think there's a lot of reasons. We're making sense of our surroundings and trying to navigate through the world, of course. And maps also order unknown environments and complex, unfamiliar environments. They also reveal patterns and relationships that otherwise we would not be able to see. So they can always be obviously be quite beautiful too. I have this very large map. It's about wider than my arm span, hanging in the main room of my house, and it was lent to me by a friend about 10 years ago, and I still have it hanging there. And there's all this art around, and people walk in my house and they look around, and they always gravitate towards this map. Like, there's lots of interesting things to look at, but they'll go right over to the map, and the colors are sort of similar to it. There's blues and greens, and it's just very interesting. And they can't even read it. The map's in German. They can't read it, but they're just drawn to it, and I just think that's very interesting. And honestly, I have a really bad sense of direction, so I really find maps helpful. And they present sort of a groundedness And also, I think it's interesting that through maps we seek an understanding of the natural world by applying these systems and explain visually things that words cannot really explain. And one of the things I like to do in my work with maps is really contrast that human-made, cartographic, mechanical element with very organic shapes. So I'm going to pivot just a little bit in this next image, and I wanted to present this image especially for students because I thought it would be interesting. But this is the Ford Alumni Center just down the street, and let's see, this was 2012. So this is a 1% for Art project, and when I met with the committee for this project, they said they were very clear about what they wanted. They wanted images of the flora and fauna, representational images to put in this wall somehow. So with the help of my husband, who's really great, knows how to build everything, has helped me with various projects. We figured this out. And so there's 21 copper plates, and I had to do this job within 9 months, and it was just exhausting. But because each one of these plates is very detailed, and I etched very deeply some of the plates, and then before I installed them in the wall, I printed them. I did editions of prints, so I would have a record of them, and then I rubbed etching ink, oil-based ink, into the crevices that I had etched, and then sealed them, and then tipped them in. They're just tipped in like 1/4 of an inch into the wall. So that was an interesting and unfamiliar process for me. And this is actually one of the prints. This is the Oregon spotted frog. This is one of the prints that is in from the plate. And you can see on the right-hand side, that's the plate. And those are 2 other plates that are actually in the wall too. And this is the giant Pacific octopus, which is actually only 6 by 6 inches in reality. And this is the plate for that, and then this is the print. Okay, next. So I wanted to put this print, this is an etching. I wanted to put this etching in here because it's one of the most favorite etchings I've ever done. I was sort of on this gig after the Ford Alumni project of animals, and this is actually this is actually a portrait of a Eurasian eagle owl, and his name is Dimitri, and he's at the Cascade Raptor Center. And if you haven't been to the Cascade Raptor Center, you should go there. It's just a wonderful place. They rehabilitate raptors, and then raptors that are injured and can't be released into the wild, they house them there, so you can go and see these beautiful birds. And so this is a large etchings, 3 plates, and you'll notice this sort of light blue web sort of star pattern throughout the image. It's hard to see unless you're close up in some areas. You can see it in the darker areas. So I started learning about fractals, actually from my friend Richard Taylor, who works in the physics department. And I was really inspired to put this sort of fractal web of star pattern in here. And the reason I did that, so the title of this piece is Cailleach Odish, which is a Scottish Gaelic word, which if anyone speaks Gaelic here, raise your hand. I probably really terribly mispronounced it. And Cailleach Odish, turning poison into medicine. So in Druid folklore, the owl is understood to be connected to all realms and embodying supreme wisdom. And the owl has the power to turn a disadvantage into an advantage, or poison into medicine. It's a Buddhist concept that I really love, turning poison into medicine. So it's a great superpower to have. So I think I better hurry up because I have a lot of images. So this is these next set of slides are from Playa, which is an artist residency that I did in the high desert up near Summer Lake, Oregon, and in the Oregon outback. I didn't even know Oregon had an outback until I went up there. I saw this big sign, the Oregon outback. And it's about 4 hours from Eugene. Completely different world. It's just up in the high desert at the edge of the Great Basin, and just an absolutely stunning place. This was my view from my little cabin. Get this wonderful little cabin to live in and a studio. And they call Playa the place where art meets science. So there's scientists there, there's writer, there's musicians, there's performance artists, lots of visual artists. And this is I would go on a hike up this big hill almost every day, and looking down, which looks like an ocean almost, or a harbor in a sea, that's the Playa, which is a very shallow body of water that fills up in the wintertime, about 14 miles long. And in the summer, it just completely dries up and cracks. Another beautiful fractal pattern that happens. So this is another view. You can kind of see the little houses down there of the campus, and that little body of water is called the duck pond. So you see all kinds of ducks that you never see around here that are migrating. Summer Lake is 10 miles away, and that's a world destination for bird watching. So you get a lot of birds, these giant sand cranes, and let's see what the next picture is. And this is looking in the other direction, so you can see that's sort of the end of the Playa there. And it was very cold all the times. Well, I've been there actually 3 times. And this is actually a real photograph of the dark sky right in that area. It's Playa is designated by the Dark Sky Institute. It's they say the darkest place in the USA. And if you've not been recently to a place that's actually really dark, it's astonishing when you go there. I mean, can you imagine seeing this in the sky in Eugene? Even, so the sky can be just really so beautiful, and there's just no light pollution there. It's in Lake County, which is 2.5 million acres, Lake County, and so there's just very little light, and very, very few people. And so the nearest town from Playa is 15 miles, and it's called Paisley, and there's 200 people that live there. So a very remote area. When I was there the first time, there was like very hardly any internet, I should say, and no cell phone service. So it was really nice once I got used to that. It was very, very peaceful. And this is a series that I did when I was in Playa. And I started in on this series called Shifting Migrations. I had been reading about changing migrations with the weather patterns changing, migrations of butterflies, migrations of various animals, and it really got very interested in that, and I think I have some shots of these are about 18 by 24. So these are woodcuts, etchings, monoprints, India ink. And this one too. So yeah, there were things, landscapes started creeping into my work. You notice those horizontal blue areas. Oh, I have a quote I want to read. Some of you know this person, Vicki Crone Amoros. She lives in Eugene. She wrote that book entitled Art Right, and it's about how to write an artist statement. And she's a wonderful artist, performance artist, sculptor, writer, art writer, and she wrote for my catalog of my work that I had. It was 2020. It was right before everything shut down for the pandemic, and I had a solo show at the Laverne Gallery in Portland, and she wrote the text for the catalog. And let's see, she said, the idea that art can arise from place, that visual art is entwined with the qualities of landscape and environment, can plainly be observed in the indigenous art worldwide. Communing with the spirit of place points to a deep human connection with the sensorial experience of dwelling in one location. Now, I can just really relate to that. And yeah, when I go to these various places, it's really quite wonderful to just soak in the air and the smells and the water and the land, and just let it really absorb into me. And I think that, we all know that when you travel or when you go to some place and you immerse yourself in that, especially when you go to one place, something in your brain just changes. At least it does in mine. I think it does. And I know I'm sure, scientific evidence for this, but I could not explain it. And that's what I love about artist residencies. So this is part of the Shifting Migration series. These are etchings. This is an etching. The last two were etchings. So next slide is another pivot into a public art project. And no, this is my studio at Playa, converted into an old barn. It was a wonderful studio. Oh yeah, there's a couple shots of the studio with, these are all etchings and woodcuts that are cut out of Japanese paper. After I printed the plates, the ink dries, and then I cut out shapes that I then collage onto other compositions. And I work in batches, kind of like batches of cookies, batches of prints. And I work on a lot of things at once because I get tired of looking at one thing. So I just move on and put things away and then get back to it. So things really cycle through. And sometimes I can be working on 20 or 30 things at one time, pieces at one time. It just seems to work better for my particular brain. Okay, so this is a little, it's not showing the whole image. Oh, I guess it is. This is a computer simulation of a, what's called the driver's relief building. It's out, no one ever sees it because this is before I did the public art project on it. It's way out West 11th near Walmart and Target, way down at the end of the MX line. And they wanted an artist to build an enclosure, like a courtyard enclosure, so that the employees of MX could take a break and go inside there and hang out during their break time. So I think this is a computer simulation of, photoshopped of the idea that I had. It's the blue butterfly fence. And right adjacent to this property, there's 500 acres of Nature Conservancy land where the blue Fender's butterfly they've been working on restoring that. And I never knew any of this until I started to do this project, so it was pretty interesting. So there's many species on that piece of land. And with the Fender's blue butterfly was believed to be extinct, and then scientists found some butterflies on this piece of land, and I think that's when the Nature Conservancy bought it. And they've been restoring the land and planting the plants that the butterflies need to thrive. And so this is one of my friends helping with installation. My team, you need a team. And there it is installed. And this is also did some of the railings. So many artists worked on the MX project, I think 8 other artists. So this is one of the railings that I installed, and these are all species from the Nature Conservancy land right nearby. And if you just drive by, you don't even notice them. They kind of blend in. But if you're standing at the bus stop, you see them. And here's another picture of the fence that is, now that the landscape is grown in. It looks so small now that I look at it. I think this picture is kind of squished a little bit. It's actually, 35 feet total. And these are the wonderful men that installed it with me. And then I got to go to this wonderful place called Kira. The title of the place is the Kingsborough International Residency for Artists. And it was, as you can see, on the Bay of Fundy in St. Andrews, New Brunswick, where the highest tides in the world happen. Like 16 meters, as high as a 4-story building. And this is a picture that I took as the tide is going out, or when it's mostly out. And it's the Bay of Fundy separates New Brunswick from Nova Scotia, and it felt like it was really far away, but I was so glad when I went. This is actually the house that the residents got to stay in. And the reason I'm showing you these photos, I know there's a lot of students in the audience, and I just want to say that when I was a student, I really didn't know very much at all about artist residencies. And I wanted to just talk about that a little while, because these places are created by people who love art and love artists, and they want to see people come and want to see the arts thrive. And it's not just for artists who are, this is part of the botanical garden that's right outside the house, 26-acre botanical garden. It's not just for artists who have, established artists who have all these credentials and experience. They accept a number of people that are just starting out in their artistic career. So not to be intimidated by, from applying to these places. That's another shot of the botanical garden. And this was such a funny, odd place in some ways. Magical place, absolutely magical place. These are the little studios that were plenty big, even though they look kind of small here. They had, in the botanical garden, they had this little menagerie of animals that lived there, and they'd march them around every day, and that was just really fun. They were really funny animals. And I have one picture that's kind of funny, I'll show you. And this is another picture of the tide way out, but these storms would just constantly be coming in and out, and it'd be raining, and then the sun, and it'd be beautiful, and then it'd be 20 degrees colder, 10 minutes later, and it was just, there's so much electricity in the air. I can't explain it. The place just felt very different than anything I'd experienced. And there's my buddy. I always miss my pets. I have animals when I go someplace, so I had to go pet him every day. And his hair is just kind of normally like that, which I think is really funny. And then I walked around this corner of the garden, and I was just taking a walk one day. I just walked around this corner, and there's this giant white peacock. I had never seen one before, and it was just so startling and amazing, and he just stood there and looked at me. So anyway, all these magical things. And I started working on a series there called High Tides Rising. And this is actually a woodcut, etching, little hand coloring in there. There's lots of sort of versions of this that I've done. And spending time in this beautiful botanical garden, which is at sea level, and not far from the water at all, I started talking to people about, well, in 25 years, where is this garden going to be? Is it going to be underwater? And people had different answers. And so high tides rising, here's another one. Oh, actually, this is a print in the show over in the gallery, yeah. And this is another in the series. So I would use these wood blocks to print. I print small editions only, and then I would keep on using the wood blocks as basis for other. This is also in the show. Basis for other compositions that I would add etching and painting to. So I really reuse my matrices. These are the one. Okay, well, I'll say one more thing, maybe, about residencies is that you get to meet wonderful people from all over the world. Like these people are from England and Russia, Ontario, New York, and you get to just live with them for a month, and get to know them, get to know their work, and you learn from each other and help each other. It's just really, it's been the highlight of for me, being an artist, being able to go to these places. And High Tides Rising. This is actually a smaller etching. It's probably like 9 by 12. Oh, and those little elliptical shapes that you see a lot. I started looking at tide charts and tide maps, and they use these elliptical shapes a lot, usually vertically, so I started using those. I like them, and so I had these little pieces of elliptical plastic made at Multicraft Plastics, so I could trace all these shapes all over the place easily. Here's another one from that series. I don't know what the time is looking like at all, but okay. So this is a place in southeastern Wyoming, Brush Creek Artist Residency, and oh God, I think this was 2019 that I got to go here, and it was very cold and very dry. This piece is called Underwater Garden, Wyoming. I have a feeling that maybe no, I think it's my angle. I was going to say that they're kind of squished, but I think they're normal from where the image is normal from where you're seeing it. So these shapes down at the bottom, I was drawing sagebrush at the bottom, and then actually behind it is a woodcut with the sea turtle. And so this is starting out with a woodcut and then painting with India ink mainly. The India ink is compatible with oil-based printmaking ink. And this was the artist camp at Brush Creek. Can't really see it, but I wanted to take a picture of this sign. This was a very, very exclusive, well, okay, so there's 30,000 acres of cattle ranch, and this family bought it and turned it into a very exclusive resort. So up the hill from the artist camp was this area where it's just very, very expensive to come there. And people would come there it was like a dude ranch kind of situation, and people would come there for a week at a time, and it was very separate from the artist camp. We weren't allowed to go, up to the restaurant or anything, and we were busy. We didn't really want to. And I walked into a grocery store in Wyoming and saw this grizzly bear, this huge grizzly bear, and it was just such a culture shock for me that this would be in the grocery store when you walk in, and this lion, you go to buy kitty litter and there's the lion, And this looks like an African lion to me. I don't know what it was doing there, or maybe it's a big male mountain lion. I don't really know. But there's just like heads of animals everywhere in that store. And then that same year, I got to go to Ucross, which is also in Wyoming. It's northern, sort of near Where is it near? It's northeastern Wyoming. And it was started, UCross started about maybe 35 years ago, and I remember hearing about it from my printmaking instructor, Ken Paul, who was one of the first residents there. And so many years later, I kept on hearing about UCross, which it's a really wonderful residency. It is located again on a big cattle ranch in the middle of nowhere, it felt like. And the skies were really dark. You could see wonderful, wonderful stars. It's near the Bighorn Mountains, near Sheridan, Oregon. And I kept on working on my series, The Underwater Garden. Oh yeah, there were sheep herds everywhere. They were very scared of humans, very sheepish. And I kept on working on my series, Underwater Garden, when I was there. And started reading, a friend of mine gave me a book by John McPhee, Opening Onto the Plains. Anyone know that book? It was about the geology of and the history, geological history of Wyoming and that area of the country. And I didn't know this, but that 200 million years ago, it was a salt inland sea. It was a big salt marsh, and that was just fascinating to me. So I started thinking about time, and this is back in those UCross or the Brush Creek pictures too. Thinking about time and how land and water change over time. And of course, that's something that I think about a lot now too, with the shifting climate, and how are things going to be? So, and what are maps going to look like 50 years from now? How are they going to change? Another one, actually I think this is what is in the show. So this is woodcut, layers of woodcut and etching, and then monoprinting on top, and then India ink also. This one is up at the agricultural school at OSU. Oh, and these are all the fun people at UCross, and they were a rowdy group. They were a lot of fun. And yeah, we'd get together, so we'd get together every night for dinner, and they had a chef cooking us dinner, okay? So I feel very privileged and honored to be at these places. And this is, there's a little space down at the bottom, but that's okay. The next three, this one and the two other images after that, are entitled Underwater Garden Malaysia. So I got to go to Malaysia, and on a little island named Langkawi, and do a little scuba diving and hike through the jungles, and just a really beautiful place, really culturally diverse island, and seemed like a very peaceful island, surprisingly. There's places like that in the world still. And these are small etchings, so this is all line etching, there's no aquatint in there. It's just tiny, tiny little microscopic little lines. Multiple plates and some collage in there. Here's another one. There are those elliptical lines again. These are all on Japanese paper. I work a lot on Japanese papers and then mount them to cotton-style European paper. The Japanese papers just soak up the ink like no other papers. They're just wonderful. And so I use them all the time now. And then came the pandemic, and I was at home like everybody else. And I was very fortunate during the pandemic. I didn't have to go out and work. I stayed in my studio a lot and just started creating this new series called Celestial Oceans. So I was into ocean creatures at that time, and I just started drawing on these big pieces of printmaking paper, this beautiful light blue printmaking paper, and these ocean creatures. And then I started, without kind of consciously making a decision to do so, drawing elements from celestial maps, and I just kind of went with it. It happened organically, and I just kind of flew with that theme, and it was really fun. And I want to go back a minute. So this piece, you can see how you see those colors a little off on this, but you see how those warm streams of yellow and orange kind of go through the cool, watery places. So there was a phenomenon that was discovered in 2013 by scientists off the coast of Alaska. It was called, nicknamed it the blob. It was a huge mass of warm water that was just, by huge, I mean like thousands of miles wide. And it was, really disrupting marine life terribly, and avian life too. And it slowly moved down the coast. Sounds like a horror movie. Moved down the coast, of Alaska, past Washington, past Oregon, California, and down into Mexico. And I have to look up where the blob is now or what kind of condition it's in. I really don't know at this point. But I really got fascinated with that idea of these waters that were so much hotter than normal, sort of traveling through the ocean waters and disrupting, everything from plankton to, and then of course up to the orcas, the top of the food chain. So, when the plankton are disrupted, everything else is disruptive, of course. So you can see that warm area coming up in the middle. That's what I was thinking of. That was sort of the inspiration for some of these pieces. And then, spring of 2021, I got to go to Sitka Center for Art and Ecology, which is one of my favorite places in the universe. And it is on the Oregon coast. It's only 2 hours and 15 minutes away. It's a great place to do a residency. They have residencies for 6 months out of the year, and then the other 6 months they teach classes there. And this is one of the beautiful Sitka spruce trees that you see here. And I want to talk about Sitka a little bit before I move on, because it's a really fascinating area. It's in Cascade Head, Oregon, and which is about 7 miles north of Lincoln City. And it was founded, Sitka was founded in 1970 by Frank and Jane Boyden. A lot of you have probably heard of Frank Boyden. He's been around for a long time. I think he might be 79 years old now. And he has been a very active artist all over the world, but very active in Oregon. A lot of public art projects. He's a sculptor, he's a printmaker, he's a ceramic artist. And he and his wife Jane founded Sitka and built it up from basically a bare piece of land. And an example of two people who'd really dedicate their lives to this beautiful place. And it is Cascade Head is a biosphere region designated a World Heritage UNESCO site. So UNESCO, in case you don't know, is the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. And okay, this is a picture of where you hike up in the woods and then you look out over the ocean and the Salmon River. So you get the idea about how absolutely gorgeous this place is. And there's elk herds that just wander around, and you don't want to get too close to them, but they'll let you walk by. But it's really wonderful to see elk, just herds of elk sitting there. This is right in front of Sitka Centers back here. So it's a pretty beautiful place. There's another beautiful Sitka. The forests are extraordinary there. This is the Salmon River going into the ocean. So I was, in my element, being right next to the ocean, of course. And these are some of the pieces that I did when I was there. That's a little too bright, but that's okay. Yeah, and I started putting this bright orange all of a sudden, and I realized that's something, if I had stayed at home working on these drawings, I don't think I would have put the bright orange in there. Like you're just, you know, in these new places, your mind, it's like you're kind of set free to do things that you wouldn't normally do as an artist. At least that's my experience. Oh, this one, yeah, this one's in the exhibition. So this is painting. There's probably a little bit of printmaking in there. I forget, I just mix it up a lot, but this is mostly painting. And this is called Night Sky at the Playa. So, how am I doing for time? Can someone tell me what time it is? 4:55? Okay, perfect. I'm almost done, don't worry. And this is actually one of my favorite pieces. We had, when I was at Playa the third time, we had a dark sky night. And so it was 9 degrees that night. And people in Lake County drove, 20, 30 miles, some of them, to come to this event. There's a big lodge at Playa. And they had poets talking about the night sky, and they had scientists, and there were these big telescopes outside on the deck that you could look through. And it was a beautiful, clear night, and it's a dark sky sanctuary, and I had never really thought about that much before a few years ago. Another piece from the celestial ocean. So I was looking at a lot of plankton, electron microscope photography, and just fascinated with the variety of shape and color and form, and also realizing that there were so many similarities between, as the series went along, so many similarities between the night sky and the ocean, the deep ocean and the deep sky. And this is a little series I did. I was part of a portfolio piece, just one of the many opportunities that you can have if you're a printmaker, students. Where I was invited to the Smithsonian Marine Science Center, was putting together a portfolio of 18 artists, printmakers, who did work about invasive species. So my subject was algae blooms. A couple of those are in the show. And just one more place. This is Vashon Island. I've been there a few times. One of the times the Omicron outbreak was just happening, and I went up there, and there were supposed to be 3 other artists there, and everyone canceled because of Omicron, so I had this beautiful place to myself. This is actually a map, an old map that shows where the settlements, the Native American settlements of the Swiftwater people were on the island, and that's just where I was staying in that's Murray Bay, that little bay in there. Excuse me, Quartermaster Bay. Murray Island is that little piece of land hanging off there. And the tribes, there's a lot of tribes that live in the Salish area. And the Kolitz tribe, well, you can read them probably better than I can pronounce them. Puyallup, Comics, Duwamish, Lumi, Muckleshoot, Nisqually, and there are quite a few more too. And so the Salish Sea, so the Vashon exists in the Salish Sea. It's one of the San Juan Islands, and it's an international ecosystem. Contains the Salish Sea and all the water that drains into it, an inland sea consisting of the Puget Sound, the Strait of Juan de Fuca, and the Strait of Georgia, and of course the border of Canada. I didn't know what I was going to do when I went to Vashon, and I had an old sketchbook. You don't use a sketchbook that much, but I just usually draw loose leaf paper. But I had this old sketchbook, and these pieces of paper fell out of it, and they were little etchings 6 by 6 that I had done 15 years ago, and I had completely forgotten about them. I don't even know where the plates are now, but I just started doing these little plankton pieces, and just went with that. And this is a view from my studio. That's that's Quartermaster Bay down there. And the second time I went there, the founder of the residency organized a themed residency. She invited myself and 3 other artists that work about water whose work is about water to come and collaborate in some sense together or figure out how they want to collaborate. And so the 4 of us met with environmental organizations on the island, the Vashon Land Trust, which is restoring waterfront land and taking down breakwalls. The breakwalls really inhibit the natural processes from land to water to happen that feed the plankton and so on. There's not a great explanation for that, but they buy pieces of property and then take down the walls and restore them to their own natural habitat. I learned so much during this residency meeting with all these people. And the orcas, I did not take this picture. Noah took this picture, and I do have a credit for this photographer somewhere. And we met with Donna Sandstrom, who is the founder of the Whales Trail, which is a series of whale watch sites all around from Seattle and Vancouver down to California, and where people can go and look at whales, so people don't take the whaling, tourist ships. The whale watching ships, don't take those, because they surround the orca pods, and the orcas, they can't feed, they can't eat because they can't hear anything. They feed by sound. What is that, sonic waves? And echolocation, thank you. And so Donna came to us, and she's an old friend, a wonderful friend, and she educated all of us about the orcas. It was fascinating. And there are several whales trail sites in Oregon, so check them out. And this is the view from my living area, Quartermaster Bay. And welcome to the Whales Trail. So the signs look like that. That's Robinson Point over there. And those are the orcas. And I don't know if you've seen orcas, but it's wonderful to see orcas. Yep. And sometimes they'll just come right up to the beach. That's Robinson Point. And I just kind of continued with my plankton, on and on and on, as you can see in the exhibition. I work on paper and then later adhere them to mount them on panels. This is a wonderful scientist. She has been collecting plankton on Vashon Island for many years. I got to meet her and work with her and her fellow artist, Carlista Rickerson and Mary Kelly. They let me go plankton catching with them, and we looked through their microscopes at their photographs, and it was really fascinating for me. I loved it. Anyway, she is like 93, and she's been collecting plankton for a really long time. So these are just some studio shots on Vashon. And yeah, I just had a great time. I had a great time working small because it was so freeing just to do multiples of small. And this is ink I spilled on the table. And I ended up putting paper on top of it and actually making prints from it because I didn't have a printing press there. A small painting. This is like 6 by 6. This is a painting on a wood panel, larger. This is on Japanese paper. This is in the show. It's a larger one. Started cutting the edges of the paper. And there's a galaxy, and there's the blob there on the bottom. And a plankton, another plankton. Those are in the show. My wonderful, fabulous cohort, who I spend a month with. These 2 artists in the front, they're from San Francisco. They're collaborators. They collaborate in everything they do, large public art projects, gallery shows, they have their studio together. They don't even do individual works. Their website is together, their studio is together. It's really fascinating. So my studio was right next to them, so I could hear them talking back and forth about their work. I just loved it. I mean, I really want to collaborate more, and it was inspiring to me. Yeah. And just a shot of the celestial black and white pieces. It was really fun to work in black and white after so long of not working in black and white. And there's the orcas going away. Oh yeah, the man that took these photographs is Mark Sears from NOAA. So yeah, I think that's it. I hope there's some questions. Oh, there's Mount Rainier in the background. Yeah. Yes.
Were you using colored pencil for? It was like, I'm not sure if you could see this from that far, but for some of like the later ones, it was like I believe it was like your ocean and the galaxies mixed together. Was that colored pencil or was that all?
So were they the ones on the blue paper with a lot of blue?
Yes, I believe it was one with like it was like the blue with like the streams of like the warm.
Yes, yes. Yeah, there was a lot of colored pencil in there. Yeah. And, but a lot of India ink too. Right. Yeah, some of those are in the gallery and you can see a lot of the colored pep, just like layers and layers. Yeah. Right, those three in the gallery on the blue paper, those are there's no printmaking in those.
Okay, cool.
I think everything else there's some printmaking, but yeah. Question?
Yeah, for those who are going to be going to the reception, can you shed some light on your thought process on putting the sequence of the small pieces as they rattle on the side of it?
Oh, okay. Okay, in the left side of the gallery there, all those 89 little panels. So I could have hung those in so many different ways, and I decided at first I was going to hang the plankton separate from the outer space pieces. And my friend, Richard Taylor here, he suggested, and it made so much sense to me, because I've been looking at these things for so long I couldn't see them anymore, that I they're about how the ocean, the deep ocean and the deep sky come together in some ways. There's so many similarities of form and composition, and so I decided to take his advice and mix them up, so that they can be seen together. So the similarities are seen together. Is that what you're sort of talking about? Yeah, a lot of them, the plankton first, and then in the middle there's a lot of the darker sky, outer space. For lack of a better name right now, I'm just calling them the outer space pieces. Yeah. So so there is a progression that you might not even notice, but because you have to kind of walk around the whole room to see those, yeah. Yeah.
What made you stop looking at black and white?
I started looking at a lot of photographs of outer space. And there is some color. In fact, I learned from my friend the other day that the color in like the James Webb photographs, a lot of it's called false color. It's applied, it's not really the color that is out there, but it's applied to the photographs so that certain things will stand out and be more dramatic. There's probably a better explanation for that if you were talking to an astronomer, but yeah, I just got into the black and white. It was kind of a fun, nice thing, and yeah. But I was looking at a lot of photographs. Yeah, let's head over. If you have any other questions, please do ask me over there. Thank you.